Welcome back. This is My Awesome Friend Mondays, and I am Sex Coach Lex. You can find me at Sex Coach Lex on all the social medias, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And I am here with Gretchen Shanks. Gretchen Shanks,
Hi.
where can people find you?
I have a website that is just GretchenShanks.com, and on Facebook I can be reached at Sex and Dating Coach.
So, Gretchen, what is it that you do exactly?
Well, I'm a somatic sex and dating coach, so I get to work with women and men who are struggling with dating for lots of different reasons or are disconnected from their bodies and fearful about how to approach intimacy with confidence and joy, and I get to help them figure out how to get back to that. And I take an embodied approach, so there's a lot of the focus of the work is getting connected back into our bodies, both how our feelings are showing up and landing in our bodies and how to regulate that, and how to recognize when we're feeling pleasure or are nervous, and having that be our guide in our journeys.
That's awesome. What made you get into that kind of work?
Well, I struggled myself for years with sex and dating, and it seemed like this insurmountable challenge that I would just sort of live this way my entire life. And then I found a somatically oriented practitioner, someone who focused on sensations in the body and how our bodies respond, and it was transformational for me. And it turned my life around.
I'm just going to ask you a question for people that don't understand. What does it exactly mean, somatic?
So somatic just means like being focused on your body. It's an embodied approach to anything really, to life. So rather than being only in my head and thinking about the problem of, I feel like I'm being rejected all the time, I need to like get rid of that feeling or that fear, it's feeling the fear in my belly as it tightens up or my chest gets hot, recognizing that and having practices to bring myself back down and relax and use that as my guide. And yeah, I think that's sort of it in a nutshell.
Awesome. So let me ask you a question. What is your favorite thing to work on within that realm to really ground us into like what that can look like?
I think my favorite thing is working with someone who has disconnected so much from their body that, for example, if we're talking about boundaries, which is a big piece of safety, and feeling secure, and they don't know that they have boundaries or even what it feels like when a boundary is getting approached or crossed. It's maybe after the fact and they realize, hey, I didn't actually feel good doing that. But they don't know how to recognize that feeling in their body in the moment. So working with a client to become more attuned to how their chest tightens up and it feels heavy, or it can be different for everyone. And just working with them to recognize the signs their body is giving.
Yeah. There's so much we don't notice.
Yes, exactly. We move through the world often numbing out to our feelings, numbing out to our body. And the work I do that I get really excited about centers the body in our experience.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of us, maybe we're just like, we're used to the fact that this thing's happening, that we don't realize where it's happening. We don't realize what that means.
Yeah, well, also, I think the way our world is organized, it almost forces us to disconnect from our bodies. We move through the world, we're often like walking down a sidewalk and we're making sure we don't brush up against anyone and we avoid eye contact and we're in our heads about our to-do lists or the work project or all of this stuff. And we're not feeling the air brush across our faces as we walk, right? It's those sorts of things, and if we, it's a small thing, but it's a way that we're in our bodies in that moment. And so if we can bring that forward more and more, we learn to connect to not just the moment more powerfully, but also we can connect to pleasure more readily when we are in our bodies in that way.
So do you have any stories of how this has impacted any of your clients? Without
Let me
naming names or things
Right,
like that.
right.
Just like
It's a
how
good
they
question.
came in feeling-wise versus how they left.
Um, I can't, so not necessarily about, one isn't coming to mind about boundaries in particular, but
Could be anything, just one
right.
that you
That's a
remember
good
really
question.
well that impacted you in a way.
It was actually working with someone in how to connect into the pleasure we're feeling when we're engaged in some form of erotic touch with someone. And we actually, though, are realizing that we want a different style of touch. Or, right? Not that what's happening is, it's not about boundaries. They're not crossing a boundary, but the style of touch, whether it's the speed or the pressure or the location, isn't what we really want. We can feel it, just like with boundaries, if we can track in our bodies what's happening and then stay in connection with the individual and say, I love that you're kissing my neck, but can you go a little lower, sort of thing. And that feeling, if you're feeling that, one, the desire for the shift, but you're also feeling that connection and you want to keep that connection, then asking for that shift. And I did that work with a client a few months ago, and he just he brightened up at the notion that he could actually ask for a shift, and it's not criticizing the other person. And you're not breaking away and kind of looking away and in a little bit of shame or embarrassment, that we were able to stay connected in that.
It's kind of ironic because a lot of people think that if they, I guess, break the moment, they're afraid of, I guess, breaking the inertia.
Yes, they don't.
Like
they think it's not going to be. It's not like, it's the same thing with consent, right?
Yeah,
this notion of asking for consent and checking in on consent. It's not sexy, but there's a way that you can stay in that erotic moment and be like, "Is this still good for you?" kind of thing, and stay connected and feeling that eroticism.
So the ironic thing is that very often that fear of breaking that
is what
ends up actually ruining it, because you don't want to be there anymore.
Right.
In that space of action.
Absolutely. Or you're in your head in that moment because you're thinking to yourself, I don't want to break this connection, but I'm not loving this, or I want something different. And your body is actually starting to pull back already, even before you said something.
And your partners will feel that.
And they feel that. Absolutely.
Whereas if you, and it is a skill to learn how to ask for what you want in a sexy way.
In both a sexy way, or even if it's something that's so activating that asking for it in a sexy way is too much or isn't in your capacity at this moment, there's still a way that you can sort of slow things down, ask for a pause, but stay in connection with that eye contact, maybe a hand on the thigh or the arm, and then share from that vulnerable place to ask for what you want. Because it can still be super, it can be nerve-making. And so the sexy maybe not coming through. But it's absolutely a skill and one that I work on quite a lot with my clients.
And then when you get that, instead of, even if there's a tiny dip, you end up going way higher in the end.
Yes, absolutely. and the thing is, there are going to be dips. That's a natural part of engaging with someone, whether it's just in conversation or in an erotic situation.
Absolutely. Gretchen, is there anything you're working on at the moment that you'd like to let people know about?
Well, the next thing I want to do that I'm really excited about is to create some women's circles and do group series of about 6 weeks where a small group of women come together and we just openly, in a space of a lot of trust, talk about sex and relationships and dating struggles, and each week we'll have a different topic that we'll focus on, but generally the conversation will be free-flowing and will just be a space where women can come together and support each other on this journey, because I know I struggled and hid my fears about my body and my sexuality and my awkwardness, and sharing in community is so healing. And that's the next thing that I want to develop.
That sounds amazing. Thanks. And one last thing is, what one thing have you done in the last year that has had a huge impact on you? And this can be personally or professionally.
Well, just about this time last year, I got up the courage to tell a story on the body storytelling stage. It's a sex storytelling show that happens in a few cities, and I was so scared to get up there. I'm not a natural storyteller, and I told a really vulnerable story, and I am so happy I did it. It shifted my own relationship to my story and my journey, and it's also given me the skills to be able to tell that story to clients and friends, and I think that that's a super important part of healing as well. In the work, is telling our stories. And doing it in front of a group of 100 people was incredibly empowering.
There's something about storytelling, when it's your own story especially, it's not just the sharing, the healing, but I think also you get to take ownership of it.
Absolutely, 100%. Yes, and hearing my story back, like having a friend videotape it or record it and being able to watch it again. Mine happened to go on the podcast for the show. There's a body storytelling podcast. And so listening to that story again, even a year later, I'm struck by, quite frankly, how courageous I was on my journey. And that helps me now when I'm feeling scared about building my business or other things, right? Like, oh, right, I faced really tough challenges. And here's my story of how I did that successfully at least once before.
Yeah, it's wild. I had a moment like that in May, or actually the week before, because I was looking back on some work I had done about 10 years prior.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, I was struggling with a lot of things, and I was like, I've already done this.
That's right.
I did this 10 years ago,
Right.
as if it was no big deal, and I didn't care. And it's like, why? I literally, like, I took inspiration from myself.
Nice. Exactly. And that's what listening to my story again recently has helped, like, I'm doing at this moment, in fact, is being encouraged by that.
Yeah, the power of storytelling.
So powerful.
Thank you very much.
Well, you're very welcome. Thanks for asking me.
My pleasure. And thank you for coming on my channel.
Yay.
One more time for everybody.
Yes.
Where can they find you on the interwebs?
I can be found at my website, GretchenShanks.com, and my Facebook handle is @SexandDatingCoach.
Can you actually spell out your full name?
Yes, my name is Gretchen, Gretchen, and Shanks is SHAN as in Nancy, KS.
.com. And I'm Sex Coach Lex at Sex Coach Lex on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, as well as sexcoachlex.com, where you can find my blog, the Bad Sex Advice blog, where I take user-submitted bad sex advice, explain why it's bad, and what you can do instead.
Oh, that's fantastic. Love it.
Thank you. All right, then.
All right.
Until next time.